Hi everyone, we're back once again with more evaluations for Orchestration Challenge 1, Ravel. So, I'm just going to very quickly review these criteria that I've got up here on this board, which I mentioned in the last video, but you might not have seen it. I'm just going to give you some general scoring comments about, say, maybe 5 to 7 minutes long, maybe a bit longer in a score where I feel that there's something more general to share with everybody. A word or two about layout, just sort of to help you get a better look to your score, and the overall quality of the texture for the piece. So I feel those will be the most useful things that I can comment on in just the very few minutes that I've got on each score. And once again, if you are a Patreon supporter, you get a much more intense evaluation of your score depending on what level of support you've got. And we've got some reminders here about what Facebook participants should expect. I really want you to watch the whole video and listen to the feedback I give to the other participants. And, I'm not going to cover everything I could possibly say. Some scores might take a couple hours before I really ferreted out everything that could be worked on. But other people are going to give you help if you, if you keep your score posted in the Facebook group. And also give your scores a couple of weeks or more before you repost it with corrections if you want to do that. Some people do that, some people don't. I personally am not going to have time to catch up with everybody's revisions, but some other people might be interested. So now this last one is really, really important to me. People have said, "Oh, thanks," and a couple of people have said, "Oh, I don't know how I could pay you back for this." Look, don't worry about paying me back. Sort of pay it forward, right? Just comment on other scores that you see. Like if you don't feel like you are qualified to give people feedback, then just say like, hey, just really look through their score and listen to it. And if you enjoy it, then leave them a comment, right? But just really be aware of everybody else's scores and give them some supportive feedback or just some words of support. And that really, really makes a difference to this entire effort for me. Okay, that is, when I see two participants commenting on each other's scores and sort of helping each other along, that is really what makes it worth it for me. Okay, so please do that. And I am keeping an eye on, on everyone's scores and, just really trying to encourage that in the group. So please help me out with that. Thanks so much. So for this new batch, let's look at Edward's piece first. And he's probably been waiting for quite a while to hear this, while other evaluations have been starting to stack up on my list. So anyhow, sorry for the wait, Edward, but here we go, finally. So Edward has got actually a fairly large orchestra in terms of lots of percussion, which is being added here. And, just full-blooded brass and so on. Okay, but let's see what choices he actually makes here. So starting off, melody in the bass clarinet, which is very nice, and harmony in the bassoons. Now there's a sort of a constant dovetailing and trading off, which is not really necessary in terms of bass clarinet and B-flat clarinet, which I'm not seeing solo first, right? It's clarinets, right? How many of each? 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets? We kind of need to know that information right here. And same thing here, when these horns come in, we're not told how many of each there are. So, please assume that I'm going to be critiquing based on a little bit on the professional preparedness of the scores. Okay, I'm not going to go into it too much more, but just please think about that and do mark your entrances. So it's really not necessary to jump back and forth between this because the bass clarinet will sound perfectly fine. Playing up there all the way through. And it can definitely play all the way up to here. It can play 8 bars, 10 bars, or whatever, without trading off. I do a little trading off in my solo wind lines for this piece, but just, I kind of wait for the apex and then I throw in another color rather than trading off constantly. But it's just a choice, an aesthetic choice if you want that. Now, this is a little strange. Mezzo piano and mezzo forte. There really does not need to be a difference there of dynamics. It's just really it should for a nice even blend. So you would have to put a crescendo here, mezzo forte there, and then once again, if you have watched some of my other videos, you'll know that I try to get my players to stay away from mezzo piano and mezzo forte all over the place, right? Because it's just really a weak dynamic. It is, forte is one thing and piano is another thing. And both of those have whole realms of possibilities within them. So just marking mezzo piano, mezzo forte all the time, you're just really limiting yourself to this very middle register or this middle region where orchestra players moderate their tone in order to blend or sort of kind of back off of other things, right? So just it's not good to stay in that middle place for too long. Okay, so you're using bassoons as the harmony here, and so just being aware that is going to be a very kind of rustic sound to a more elegant melody. Now here you come in with the horns. Now keep in mind that this is really where you would need to back things off. If this is P, right, these can both be P solo, right? Solo should be here, right? They're both soloists, right? So this can be P solo, this can be P just not solo, and then this should be this should be pianissimo if you want these to blend. Otherwise, this is going to stick out. And right now, you've already got this at a higher dynamic than the bassoons, right? So what's going on there? So it's definitely, the horns will dominate here the way you've got the dynamic scored. This is all kind of pretty. Then coming out of it with the cor anglais, keeping in mind that these, they're going to dovetail into different timbres, right? As opposed to here where they're kind of the same timbre or very similar timbre. This is actually different because this is clarino register bass clarinet, and this is like chalumeau and throat tones for the clarinet. So, anyways, I'm spending a little too much time on this opening page, but yeah, and then some nice pizzicato, and a little bit more division here, and then pizzicato leaping up. This is actually the first score I've seen. So this is the 8th score I've received on Facebook, and this is the first one I've seen that has a regular kind of pizzicato accompaniment, just sort of, to kind of keep things flowing as opposed to just slurring everything. Now, you do not have to slur according to Ravel's notation in the score, because it doesn't really apply to the winds and strings, right? It's a different philosophy of phrasing. Okay, now here you start to blend, right? So it kind of comes out of this, it's sort of reaching upwards with, flute, clarinet, and everything else going up to here, and then coming together with the strings, and then from here on, it's really going to be a string sound, the way that you've got this. Horns fairly high. They'll be able to play mezzo piano up there, but they will tend to dominate the harmony. Okay, so they just have a very pungent sound the higher you push them, right? If you wanted this to be a more backed off sound, clarinets are better. Okay, now moving on, we finally get to that little melodic thing. Yep, ba-da-da-dum-bum. And this is nice. Now here, you've just come out of flutes and violins and octaves. Now here you are backing off on the dynamics, and there's no slurring here. So your flute's going to go dun dun da 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 da, while the strings are going da da. It would be better to have them more similar to each other, right? So that the emphases of the melody and the phrasing would be a little bit more succinct. Nice little effects from the celesta, and I like this. The way that you have assigned roles here in the strings is very nice. And all very good. Now, back to the melody. Here, this is going to be a blended flute and and first violin melody, just like here. So I'm wondering where the ear picks up on a new idea, right? Maybe you could just leave out the violins, right? Or maybe you could have just solo violin and no flute. There are a bunch of different things you could do here, but just need some variance between the two ideas, right? Or else it just sort of feels like the same idea is going on with kind of a new twist. Yeah, so here we're, kind of the same thing. Once again, dovetailing back and forth between instruments that have very different timbres. And then here, this is a little strange because the oboe gets very strong in this lower register here. Right, so maybe two flutes would have been better, or maybe better to have the oboe just continue on from here and then the flute lay back and have this taken, whatever kind of harmonization here would be done by two oboes. And then, of course, you've got clarinet in here anyways. So, you almost don't even need this sort of dance back and forth here because the clarinet will just dominate all the way through, right? So yeah, and then what's more, you've got the violas on top of that. So I just feel that you're adding a lot of things blended together, and I think that like one idea would be stronger than another, right? Now here you got your strings just doing full force octaves here on interpretation of the melody, and that's very cool. And I feel that it's giving a little bit away a little bit too soon. With this kind of strength right here, you almost don't even need the trumpet in there, right? But yeah, and I like the trills here. I think that's very cool. I think it's cool to have your brass come in doing this bump bump stuff. That's cool. And now here we're starting to see some more of this. I think the tubular bell might be a little too much, but I'd be interested to hear it just experimentally done. It's not a bad idea. I'm just wondering if it's adding a little too much to the texture here. So finally we get to the climax, the appassionato, and right. So you've got the flutes and oboes descending across the kind of the counter rhythm going through the melody of the other parts. Yeah, I feel like you've got a triple octave here, piccolo and clarinet in the middle and cor anglais on the bottom, and then you've got flute and oboe. So this is going to be very radiant, very pungent octave against this sort of more pointy timbre that you'll get from this particular stack of instruments. And then of course, like in some sense, it almost doesn't even matter. This is really going to scream this high C. It's really going to be very, very big, and it's just going to basically blot out the clarinet right here. Though it'll be a more interesting combination once it gets a little lower. You'll hear a little bit more. You really do need some decrescendo here coming in towards D, right? Because just suddenly it's going to go chunk and drop out, and then all of a sudden you're mezzo piano, right? Where is the nice transition over to D, right? We got to think about that a little bit more. Yeah. So, but nice cool down once you actually get to mezzo piano. It's really rather nice. I like the bassoon taking over the melody here. Yeah, and once again, the more naked the texture, the more naked the timbre of a melody instrument, the more effective, really, right? This is kind of nice. This little passage in here, harking back to what happened before. And then same thing here, more strings, sort of kind of going back and forth between two little ideas. I like the fact that you sort of highlight the horns, but, trumpet and then flute an octave higher, it's going to be a very, very, not piercing, but it's going to be really grabbing the ear, right? And then, yeah, tremolos, this is all good. And, yeah, I wish this score were a little bit more condensed, but at a smaller size, do you know what I mean? It's a little harder, you know what I mean? Because the staff size becomes so small at this. But yeah, a lot of stuff that works. and I could pick this apart. It's very tempting. You got me really early in the day, so you got like over 10 minutes worth of evaluation. Most people are going to get 5 to 7, and some scores I'm going to occasionally go more on, but it's some of the things that I'm going to talk about are general lessons for everybody. Okay, so so once again, everybody watch everything, right? So yeah, if I spend a little bit more time on one score and a little less on another, I might have actually covered some of the things I needed to say in the score, in the other score, right? So it's not like one person is cheated out of time of another, right? They all apply to, and everybody should be watching everybody's evaluations and giving them feedback once again. Okay, so really cool score. Really glad. Thanks so much for sharing this. Okay, so our second score is from Eli. And this is a neat score. It's got a lot of really interesting stuff in it, and it's well proportioned, and very lightly orchestrated in a lot of areas. And I like the fact that there is essentially a very sparing orchestra, which when you see my score, you'll see that it is also sparingly scored. So. So starting off with first clarinet, I like that. Not so sure about this right here. Now this is basically a unison in bassoon and first horn, and you probably would need to mark the first horn down to pianissimo, to get the right kind of balance. But all the same, I think that this line will outweigh the harmony that you're trying to do, that you're trying to achieve in other places. The timpani's a nice touch. It would be interesting to hear that performed. Not sure about the role, but it's not, it could be an interesting textural effect. Okay, and if I would have, the only problem that I would have is that the clarinet pretty much just goes on and on for the entire first episode. There's no variation at all. So, if you have a great clarinet player, that's no problem at all. But yeah, it would be interesting to hear just a little bit of a change here and there, just for these, for interest's sake. Now here you sort of have the horn drop out, and that loss of energy will definitely be felt, just because the horn will tend to be very present in such a delicate texture, such as you've got there. Okay, then you jump up here with the same exact idea going on with flute and oboe. I'm wondering whether or not this was intended to be harmonized, like over here with the bassoon and the horn. Was it intended to sort of express some of the harmony of the part over here, or because it's just the same line. Now, flute and oboe, it's an interesting mixture, but it will tend to be sort of oboe dominated, until it rises, say, above E or F in the staff, at the top of the staff. Timpani, kind of cool. Now here you just have the strings take over on the melody. That's an interesting choice. Kind of nice. I like the way that you catch this. You go pizzicato up to here, and then a sort of a slurred and sustained sound. That's kind of neat. And here we have more unison flute and oboe. So in here it's kind of an interesting sound, but I can't help wondering whether or not it would be stronger just to have one or the other, just as a more individual sound. And I don't see exactly the sense of continuity going from violins to to this part here. It may feel a little strange. The rise here to a melody from here may not really feel as connected as you think. So watch out for that. This is neat. The trumpet coming in and being part of the rhythm of the passage. Very nice rhythm here, I have to say. Nicely scored. And neat little touches here. Bassoon doubling with viola. That can be really, really nice. And you spent some time thinking about the phrasing, and I think that that's very cool here, with the violins. Okay, and pizzicato accompaniment, that works really good. And here we have flute and oboe finally harmonizing. That's going to be strong. And here you're varying things. Oboe, clarinet, and then back to strings. Okay, this is going to be very strong. See, here you got the octaves in the clarinet, and that tends to be kind of piquant, to sort of have a slightly edgy tone there. It's not as sweet as some composers think. And then the violin, and I mean, I'm wondering whether or not this could have been done, say, with the B flat here being taken over by the second violin and the viola playing octaves, so that you kept the continuity of the octaves going here, because that the dropping off there will be felt as well as a slightly irregular thing. Okay, not a huge thing, but now here, I'm thinking that, you have a harmonized. It's not harmonized. Sorry, correction. Here you jump down the octave, right? But I'm wondering whether you could have harmonized in the middle here, going up to this, going up to this oboe here. This is nice. That's very cool. Doubling with both. Yeah, just feel like it's a little too regular. Now this is going to be very weak right in here. You could have just left out the flute until the E flat right there, right? I mean, because it's already in the oboe, and so it's just really kind of not even going to be heard until you get to there. Anyways, cool to throw in this tremolo. I'm just wondering that just very short stems here with the tremolo. That's going to be hard to read for the player and the score reader. Yeah, it just, almost doesn't even look like notes. So try to have longer stems on your tremolo. That might be something your notation software is doing. Is this Sibelius? It looks sort of like Sibelius. Anyway, try to fix that as you go. This is neat. Yeah. Some other composers were experimenting with adding certain kinds of patterns to it, and it was having more or less success. This probably would be fine, but if it were stuck into like something like this, it probably would distract a bit. So here, probably all right. Yeah, and once again, this leap up here could have been harmonized rather than just octaves, just as a thought. Now, we finally get to the big payoff, the appassionato. And this is some good scoring. Cellos and basses, bassoons, very nice. Taking that bass line. And then the strings is like entirely strings doing the melody, and all winds and brass doing the little counter melody in between. So that's going to be nice. You're going to hear the two colors, sort of the two basic colors, in kind of opposition to one another, rather than mixed, right? So interesting experiment. I think it would be really revealing for you to hear that, less homogeneous kind of approach for yourself, to hear how the orchestra would handle it. My feeling, just my personal taste, I would want some kind of bridge between the two colors, but that's the way that you see it, so I respect that. Okay, and then good that you're seeing this decrescendo. A lot of people missed the fact that the cool down has got to have some kind of hairpin down. Oops. And I like these little boop boops by the horn. That's nice. And then you're just keeping it really just straight strings on the cool down all the way down to mezzo. Mezzo forte to piano would have been better, I think. Even just right here. Because mezzo forte and mezzo piano are really kind of like, it really is not degrees on a thermometer. Mezzo forte down to piano is going somewhere. Mezzo forte to mezzo piano is not really... it's more of an attitude at this point, right? Piano is really where you're headed anyways. So, in that way, you can have piano espressivo, and then you'll get a much more beautiful line, rather than mezzo piano as a solo line is just really kind of a boring sound, if the player really obeys what you're doing, which they probably won't. there's a little too much timpani here, I think. And in fact, it was great that you're using timpani as a rhythmic device, but I think you use it an awful lot. Yeah, so just watch out for that. It tends to wear on the ear after a while. Nice. I like the call and response. That's very good. And this as well, very nicely scored in that bassoon. So really, I don't have a huge problem with the way this was all done. This is cool, dropping as you get up to these high notes. Yeah. And this is unique so far in our scoring approaches, and that is to have a solo cello there. I think that's nice because you give the word to it. But espressivo, what do you mean by espressivo? You could just put a P on there. You'll get the same sound. What do you mean by espressivo? You're not really telling them any of the inflections, right? You know, da 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 da. You know, you really have to tell them. You have to show them hairpins here or there, or else they'll just make up what they want, and it might not be what you want, right? So give them some inflections. Just kind of give them a little bit of a guide to what you mean by espressivo. All right, and then the little pizzicato at the end. I really like this score. You know, it's really nice, Eli. Thanks so much for sharing it with us. Okay, now yet another score this time by Chan King Hei, and I really like this. It's what I would call highly spiced. Now, I've been giving a lot of advice to everybody. Just the last two scores were just really unbelievably long compared to what I had intended. So I'm going to be speeding things up a little bit. It's going to be more like 5 to 7 minutes from this point, okay? Starting now. So anyways, I really did like this. There's lots of little touches and stuff. It's almost a little too thickly scored. It'd be interesting for you to hear this and, to hear how the orchestra would really play it, but it's got a lot of promise, and I like the fact that you will add a bar or two so that you make sure that your phrases, these very complex phrases that you're scoring, all come together. So nice, melodic treatment there in the second violins, and then these textures are just really fun. Some people have recently griped a little bit about not having mock-ups to listen to. Well, this orchestrator left a mock-up on their posts on Facebook, so just go check it out on Facebook, okay? And I just thought it was really nicely done. I don't know what sound sets were used, but they were pretty cool. This was nice. Some of this stuff is going to be inaudible, frankly. So if you just marking celesta quieter than everybody else is always a mistake. The celesta should always be marked up because it is very hard to hear, right? And mezzo piano, you don't need mezzo piano here, right? You could just stick with piano, right? And just piano crescendo, right? So, as you rise here, you don't need to mark the mezzo piano. You already have established piano, right? So, I just don't think you need so much mezzo piano all over the place. I'm not a mezzo piano hater, but I just think that it's sort of overdone here, right? So it's just piano. Okay, and then this is very nice. I'm glad that you stuck to pianissimo. And see now, celesta at piano really does work here. This is neat. This stuff in here. So this is an example of using what's in the original score, but really spicing it up. This stuff, it's all a bit busy, but it has a really wonderful texture. I think it might be a little too much here in terms of adding these clarinet octaves. You've already got support here. You've got, in unison, flute, oboe, and clarinet. I mean, it might even be better just to drop the first oboe down an octave, leave the flute where it is, cut the clarinets, and just have this be played unison with the strings. It just is a lot of color in there. You use a lot of horns all over the place. It's good, but you really have to drop their dynamic below that of the other instruments, okay, in this kind of scoring. This is neat. These harmonics, I don't think you need to do, first desk solo kind of stuff, I think you can just have the whole section play this. I think that's fine. Yeah, and yeah, this is neat. This could have actually been just solo. If you really want a kind of a more solo tone, I would say make these just the section or the groups, the violin and viola group, second violin and viola group, and then have this as a solo instrument. It's a neat idea. Like, it's great to see some excellent orchestration ideas that are really different from mine. That's very nice. Yeah. And that's good. It's a little heavy on the melody, I would say, right in here. Okay, now here we get to the appassionata part. Yeah. You pretty much have everything doubled, really. You have first and second flute covering the first and second violins, and then on the second violins, you've got quite a lot of weight. You've got second flute, you've got first oboe, you've got first clarinet. Yeah, I mean, it's nicely textured, though. Do you know what I mean? I feel that there needed to be a little bit more focus on this line here, this counter melody, right? There's hardly anything going on with that, right? You've got second oboe, first bassoon, and yeah, I mean, it just needs, just needs a little bit more. So there are definitely, like maybe clarinets could have helped out with that, or some other kind of thing, right? So it just some of the textures are overbalanced in the wrong way. Okay, and it's good diminuendo down here. I would say just to piano or mezzo forte or something like that. But mezzo piano, it's a little humdrum, of a dynamic for this special of a moment, I felt. But yeah, first oboe, pretty nice. Little touches from celesta. It might be a little too much celesta, really, just a little too much icing on there, and a lot of it will be inaudible, especially in massive sections like this. You've basically written a piano part here, or a harp part, two harp parts, yeah, and nobody's going to hear that because it's just too huge. The music is just too huge. And yeah, getting to our cool down. This is good. Answered by that. Really, really nice. I really love this. This works great. And then horns. Yeah, this actually works pretty good because the third and fourth horn will be partners here, and the second horn can take a rest while the first plays the solo. So that is very cool. Yeah, and then answered by the winds once again, and in a different way than this wind chorale. So that is an important thing. Oops, I keep scanning the wrong way. Yeah, and bass clarinet going down in staccato. That's a very cool thing to do. This is well done. And then here you're adding a lot more time for different things to happen. And then you sort of end with a little Debussy touch of pizzicato. So yeah, so once again, this orchestrator has left his mock-up on the Facebook group. Go and take a look at it. All right. And you'll hear a lot of these things. Once again, I mean, I could make a huge treatise out of analyzing the past three scores, like an hour of analysis each. But I don't have time to do that. And I don't think that that's why you're watching this video. But anyway, so once again, really nice work. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. All right. Our next score is from James. And I'm just still chuckling at some of the ingenious stuff here. And look, James, if you meant this to be dead serious, then I apologize. I'm not laughing at your attempt, but I just think that there are some things in here where you really intended to have a bit of good humor and wit, and if so, then you really accomplished it. So yeah, there's just so much fun stuff in this. It's worth a look by everybody, and also listen to the mock-up. The mock-up is done a little, the sounds are a little grunty, if you don't mind my saying so. Maybe Note Performer would improve that. It's not too expensive. But yeah, it feels a little a little on the simplistic side in terms of the quality of the playback, but still, it's very, very fun. Now, a lot of things are kind of done opposite and sort of done like too much too fast, but if you get used to this reinterpretation, it really is an adaptation rather than an arrangement, like a straight arrangement transcription. So yeah, so it's just really thick textures all the time, and you kind of have to get used to it. It's almost like more of a band arrangement. James, if you've done a lot of band arranging, then I can understand where you're coming through with some of this stuff. Now, there's like almost no slurs anywhere. That would be my big critique. Is just like you could slur each pair of notes, or you could slur some phrases or work out some other sort of approach. But yeah, it just really does need that if you're very serious, if you're serious about this. I think this would make a really cool symphonic band arrangement. Yeah. And you'll hear these textures get really big and really hugely orchestrated until finally, in a place where you might be expecting pianissimo, it is forte and everything is just going, going full guns. Yeah, lots of big, strong brass in there. I think the timpani is a little too much. Do you know what I mean? I almost think that you could get the same sort of effect with, like, if you are having big, long notes in the tuba, and bassoon, you do not need this long, you don't need this stuff from your double basses. You could just have everybody going pizzicato, and you get pretty much what you're looking for here in the timpani. And yeah, big crashes on cymbal, very fun. Yeah, and it just kind of goes on and just is really, really big when it's indicated to be a little small. This drop off is a little severe. I would be expecting some hairpins down, so that this could pick up a little bit better. That's all. This pizzicato seems very, very bare, very spare after the hugeness of what happened before. Yeah, this is all fine. So is this. Once again, needs some phrasing to let us know what to do and where to go. Okay, and yeah, this is all fine. Yeah. Huge unisons on everything. So yeah, this is what makes me think of like concert band or symphonic band, which is why I'm trying not to be too critical. This, you can't mark mezzo forte on a trumpet part that's going up to high C. That is going to be a forte or louder, and it's going to be a very pinched, very dominant sound. You know what I mean? Yeah, that is not quite going to work the way that you think it is going to. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, look, this is a really cool experiment. You've got some cool doublings here, and yeah, this just seems to be a little bit of a waste, though. You're saying oboe 2 and clarinet 2, but that's why this makes me think that this is a symphonic band kind of an approach, because that would be the second group of oboes, right? And the second group of clarinets, so they could play intervals, right? So that's... But if this really were oboe 2 in the orchestra, that would have to be a single line, correct? And if you really wanted to take that approach, I would say just throw away one or the other of these parts and just have, like, say, maybe the clarinets each taking one note of the harmony, right? You've just got so much power here. Do you know what I mean? And then you go up to this section here, which eventually tails off. See, this is good. This is good. Once again, mezzo piano is just, it's just blah. Do you know what I mean? Piano is a place, right? Mezzo piano is an adjustment to that place. And piccolo, it's almost just a throwaway right here. From here. It's kind of like doesn't really add anything. Yeah, otherwise, kind of cool. Now, I saw what you were doing here, you sly dog. Throwing in a little jazz reharmonization there. That I feel is the cosmic joke of this piece, is right here on page 8. Just how you rework the harmony. That is really awesome. I think that Ravel would find that just very, very fun to hear. Do you know what I mean? Um, yeah, and then when everything seems like it's backing off and getting very spare, this is all fine in terms of scoring. Boom. Right here, when things would appear to be completely backing off, you sort of make the coda the biggest thing. I thought that was an interesting reinterpretation. Throughout this, the melody is a little wrong in terms of just like letting out some of the notes, the way that the phrases connect together. You've sort of cut some of that. So I hope that's intentional. If not, you might want to rework that. Okay. And, this is very sort of Hollywood-esque. Also, symphonic band this is a kind of a touch that you might hear like the clarinets doing, that sort of approximate violin and viola parts. And saxophones. You might see them doing stuff like that. So I really am kind of curious to see whether or not you are coming from that particular world. Yeah, this is all right. Yeah, and with cellos, taking that very last little thing. Yeah, and tuba. This is going to be pretty big, man. This tuba line. But good for a good player. And the marking is, and the dynamic is at the end here. Pianissimo? What is it? I need to know. Slurred? All right, where are we going with this? Other than that, really fun score. I mean, once again, I apologize. I'm not laughing at your arrangement. I just think it's really, really cool and really kind of cosmically funny. And, once again, I think there are some parts that Ravel himself would have found kind of, a good joke on him, you know what I mean? Or a really fun reinterpretation of his intentions. So nice work, man. That one gets, big thumbs up for originality. Okay, so our last score for this group is by Nicolas Kingman. And if you don't know him, then you probably have not posted a score on Facebook yet, because he has a tendency to be one of our most prolific commentators, even a lot more than me sometimes. Nicolas has got an eye for very fine detail, and he just really loves to roll up his sleeves and jump into it. And why this man is not teaching at a conservatory, I do not know. But anyways, it's great for him to have contributed to score. I think that just really shows something, about the group dynamic and everything else. Really enjoyed it. Having said that, Nicolas, I would have preferred something that was transposed so that I could just read it, and not, it's funny when you are, when you're used to just looking at a score, seeing all of the standard transpositions, just recognizing what they are, and then suddenly seeing a C score, you have to recompensate. Do you know what I mean? And it's definitely that's a really minor point. But yeah, just I prefer to see things transposed. Just a note for everybody. So just hit the transpose button if you are working in Sibelius, and however it works in Dorico or Finale, just do that. Anyway, all that aside, really enjoying looking at this, and this is interesting. Nicolas is slurring out of the natural flow rather than into it, right? So instead of going da da da, he's going da 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 da. I think that's really kind of cool. And, having the English horn come in along with the first clarinet, it's going to be a pretty rich sound. But notice that it's less of a sustained sound. It almost could have just been an eighth note if you just wanted a little bit of oomph. Similar to, there was a composer from the last group that just had that, the tiniest little bit of rhythmic oomph to the melodic curve. So yeah, maybe something like that would work. Good to have bass clarinet in the score, and nice bassoons, and then the entire string section is dedicating itself right at the beginning to rhythmic emphasis, and that is going to make this score really dance. And of course, this is really kind of almost setting up a bolero type of a thing. So that is a neat touch, and kind of continuing on. I think that if you went past here, it would be getting too old too fast there, but then you very wisely stop it right there. Okay, but same treatment throughout this opening passage, and that's nice. And just a little bit of color here from the flute above. I like that. Yeah, but otherwise, just a solid approach all the way through. Now, oboe coming in and doubling with violins. Yeah, this is kind of neat. Clarinets are grabbing this harmony here, right? And then oboe is playing off with the first violins. Almost don't even need this F here with the second violins, but it will add a little something. I'm just a little curious though, like right here, I feel that since the violins kind of gave away the whole leaping and jumping pizzicato right at the beginning, the transition up to this melodic line is less defined, right? Because it's already happening. So there isn't any bum 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 do dee doo dee up an octave from where it started, right? So because it's already going on, that sort of sense of motion throughout is already happening. So anyway, but I mean, you do go to arco here, so that is that does create some definition. All right. Continuing on, I like this. This is similar to what I did. I had a tendency to change colors at the crest of a phrase. And I think that really does help things from becoming too kind of locked into one color. Yeah, this is going to be a very delicate color going down into the middle of the register. So I'm not so sure that English horn is the most balancing of partners there. That I would have almost have felt that it would be better to just thicken it up with flute if you needed to thicken it up with second flute. Right. And then when you go to A2 here, it doesn't matter because you've got more complexity happening. Yeah. Okay. This is good English horn scoring though. I like this and I like this. And this is really nice the way everything locks together, as I was saying before. I don't know why you need the bass clarinet so slurred, though, right? Since everybody's kind of getting all slurry here, and you just came out of a very pizzicato section, I would think that some part of your group still needs to have a little bit more impulse to it. That would just be my only critique there. But otherwise, enjoying it, really enjoying that all. Okay, good use of the horns. I like it a lot. Okay, now this is neat. So the big Hollywood touch. A lot of people, did big swoops up to the next phrase. So yeah, forte, flutes, and and strings, upper strings. Almost feel like this is a little too finessed there. I think it would be fine just to have them all be forte, or maybe have the strings be forte and the winds be mezzo forte, and they will all just blend the way that it blends. Because otherwise, I think it's a little too finessed. It'll be, the conductor saying, "You be quiet, you come out, you do this," as opposed to a more just scoring in a way that that will just naturally fall into place like that. But otherwise, very cool. I mean, this all will balance if it's done. If people are paying attention. And this is neat, having the oboes take over, keeping everybody nice and strong and clear. I really like that, Nicolas. You're doing a great job with this. This is a little... Yeah, okay, that's going to be fine. But look, I think if you really want this to envelop, you're going to have to go decrescendo at the ends of these to make it get swallowed into the texture of the winds rather than just stopping. Right? And I think the same thing here. You need an ending note. You need a destination note for this to come to an end. And that locks together with something like this. There's a bit, yeah, just ending on that B flat with the bassoons, I think would be a little smoother of a transition. All right, moving on. This is neat. I like that a lot. Boop, 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 with the horns and then the clarinets. Very, very simple scoring and very effective. It was just a, great oboe line. Now, wondering a little bit if you really wanted dun da 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 or dun da 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 da. I almost think that it would be kind of cool to phrase it da 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 da. You know what I mean? Just like slur, no slur. But interesting choice. It would be cool to hear that, and also to wonder how Ravel would have phrased that. Here, I think if they're both headed up to octaves, it would be nice to split it a little bit, the way I've seen in other scores, or maybe harmonize on the way up. Sorry, I think I'm starting to grind that axe a little too much. It would be good to dovetail here. I feel even if that puts the flutes in a sort of a slightly weaker place, just for one beat. Yeah, and so we've got A4 here. Not too sure about that. Let's see where it goes. I did look over this once, but yeah. I mean, I guess. I just wonder if both voices are necessary there, but you're headed for this, which is kind of cool. Some missing dynamics here. I feel that you could have like fortissimo from everybody, and then just forte from the horns, and it would work pretty well. Yeah, this is really nice. I love this with the clarinets and everybody sweeping up to that. But I almost wonder whether or not the oboes could have gone to a lower position in the harmonic sweep to end up here rather than going up with the flutes and then jumping back down. Not that there's anything wrong with them jumping back down a ninth here, but just to make the continuity a little bit better. Yeah, this is nice and strong. The tooty type instruments that have a sort of a tooting sound, like the flute and the clarinets, are playing the counter melody, and then the warmer sounding instruments, the strings and the double reeds, not including the bassoons, are doing the more melodic passage, doing the primary melody. Yeah, this is all going to work fine. It's built right into the music, and you followed it, and you're doing... Yeah, this is all working out great. Yeah. Almost wondered whether there could have been more of a dynamic drop from this phrase to this phrase, right? Or overall. But yeah. Fun clarinet solo. Not so sure that you need A3 there with your double reeds, because this is a cool down, right? So almost be better just to have the English horn. And, ending with second violin, almost wonder whether or not, maybe doubling by bassoon would be a nice way to fatten it up. It just feels a little... I'm not really seeing any dynamic drops here. I guess that you wrote this in a rush, so it's understandable. So we're missing some melodic material in here. So maybe that got left out. Okay. Yeah. I was wondering about that the first pass. So if that's intentional, then that's all right, but you might want to take another look at it. Yeah. And then clarinet. English horn going to bassoon, going to bass clarinet, and the little... Who can resist the staccato bass clarinet on the way down? I sure couldn't. This is nice, but I'm wondering if there could have been some overhanging harmony. Yeah. Because you sort of drop down a bit there, right? From the destination. Okay, well, anyways, that's all I've got to say about this. I feel the ending is a little incomplete. There probably were some more ideas that you were planning to do. Maybe you're in a hurry. But the beginning is very strong, has some fine scoring in it, and it's always nice for people who do lots of evaluations to show where they're coming from as well in their approach. So nicely done, Nicolas, and nicely done, everybody. And there is a real strength for helping the community out by supplying mock-ups, and just, I would say, link your mock-up as the first comment or second comment in your score when you post it on Facebook, and that just really helps everybody see where you're coming from. And I'm sorry that I don't have time to add it, but I'm kind of adding a lot of extra minutes anyways as I look through these scores and get very enthused about them. All right, so thank you, everybody, and looking forward to the next batch.